I don't know if I love or hate this book. It could go either way. This book is about, it sounds boring, okay? Hear me out. Hello everybody. Today we're talking about my favorite books of 2023. I have 9 books that I gave 5 stars to and 1 honorable mention, but I thought let's start with the one I have mixed feelings about. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath is about a woman working in New York. She doesn't get into a writing program. She then spirals into a very famous depression, has to go through electroshock therapy, and the portrayal of all of those things is excellent. Sylvia Plath, and this book is famous and probably considered a classic for a reason. It is one of 2 books on my list that I felt as I was reading it, I thought, wow, the writing is excellent. Wow, this is fantastic. However, I'm going to put some quotes on the screen and a trigger warning for racism. If you don't want to see it, please close your eyes. I'm not going to read them out loud. And the fact that Maggie Gyllenhaal had to read these out loud in the audiobook is a little bit uncomfortable. And I didn't know this about the book, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. So I felt that the whole book was 5 stars. Who am I to say that Sylvia Plath shouldn't get 5 stars? But I wish I had known everything that I'm showing you on the screen. Then still in January, I think I had 4 5-star books in January. The next is Crying in H Mart. Obviously this has become quite a very famous and popular memoir because it is about Michelle Zauner talking about losing her mother to cancer. The book itself, I don't really cry for books, and I would say that this is the only book that made me cry, maybe 2 tears in the acknowledgements where she thanks her husband. And that's not because the writing isn't good. It is so beautifully explained. Her mother is Korean, from South Korea, and the descriptions of food and how they connect over food is extremely beautiful. I don't often read memoirs, and this one I would highly recommend. Next we have Kim Ji-young, born 1982. This is fiction but does include some stats about misogyny and how women are treated in South Korea. A lot of it I think we can see happening internationally. Some things maybe are more pervasive in certain cultures, but it wasn't anything that I was unfamiliar with. And that's the problem. The story itself is about a woman, and this is not a spoiler because in the first chapter it really feels like, oh, she's not okay. This woman is going through a postpartum psychosis. There's something definitely wrong, and then having to see how it's dealt with, why she has certain pressures in her life, how her husband is kind of dealing with it but not really in a very passive way, and I think that this would speak to so many women. The House in the Cerulean Sea is adorable, definitely worth the hype. I thought that the characters were lovely. They're so easy to fall in love with. This is about a man who sort of works for like a CPS, a Child Protective Service, and he has to check up on this home, the House in the Cerulean Sea, where there is a man taking care of a group of children, but they are special. They have different needs. They have incredible personalities, and one child might happen to be called Lucy because his full name is Lucifer, and they are concerned that Lucy is going to cause the end of the world. The book is funny. It is heartwarming. There's sort of a 3rd act conflict that was unnecessary because I didn't feel we needed the conflict to make the book good. I also felt that It was one of those things where it's like a Disney movie where we have to resolve the third act conflict because it's part of the story, but then we're somehow solving all the world's problems very easily, and unfortunately we can't solve the world's problems in that way. But I didn't take anything away from the book. I just think it was unnecessary to the story, and this was an easy, lovely 5 stars. Longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes is one of the Greek retellings, and this one specifically is about Medusa. I think I read Circe last year as well, which was very good. But this story is told in multiple POV, so if you don't like multiple POV, don't bother. I do think that the way it's told and the way that it comes together works really well to tell sort of an origin story of who we think this villain is in Medusa. Even one of the POVs is from the snakes on her head, and I think that it's done so well because it tells a specific perspective in the right time. Natalie Haynes is an academic as well as a comedian, which is a fascinating combination. And so she knows the area quite well, but also her reading the audiobook herself, listening to it in her own voice, using the right intonation at the right time, the right comedic timing, really made the reading experience fantastic. I would highly recommend the audiobook, and this really solidified this book as a 5-star and even an all-time favorite. And then we have The Midnight Library. I do understand that on BookTube people have mixed feelings about this. This is about a woman who honestly wants to end her life, and she goes into sort of a purgatory, but it is a library. It's this never-ending library with all of her life story and her decisions that she made, and she can go back and forth in time trying to see if she had made a different decision, would something in her life be different. And so because this woman is feeling discontent in her life, because she is struggling with depression, she has very small decisions that she thought, maybe if I married this person, maybe if I took this job, maybe if I didn't quit the band with my brother, then things would be different. And I really resonated with her story. I do like the idea of time travel. I think that I'm the type of person who worries about very tiny decisions. I have to tell myself, or I have to ask myself, is this going to matter in 5 years? Is this going to matter in 10 years? If I choose this dinner over that dinner, will this really affect the trajectory of my life? And so for me, I really resonated with it. And I understand that some people didn't resonate maybe with the portrayal of depression, or Matt Haig himself I think has said that he struggles with depression sometimes, and so I just think that also it can look different for different people, and so maybe people didn't resonate with what Matt Haig was saying or the themes in the book, but I think for myself I really appreciated this book. The second book on this list that I said as I was reading it, I thought, wow, this is outstanding, was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This not only won the Women's Prize for Fiction, but also the Pulitzer Prize this year. This book is about, it sounds boring, okay? Hear me out. This book is sort of a retelling or a different idea of David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So I read Charles Dickens, which you don't need to do before reading Demon Copperhead. I think that you can read Demon Copperhead on its own and absolutely have the most wonderful experience, even though this is a difficult book, so I don't want to say that it's always an enjoyable time, but you can read it without knowing the story of David Copperfield. But essentially there are similar themes in how the story goes along, and so there was a point where I felt absolute dread for something that I knew was going to happen, and I felt that added to my experience personally. But if you know the story of David Copperfield, Demon Copperhead is also about a boy who grows up in poverty in In this case, it is in the Appalachian area of the United States, and this is where Barbara Kingsolver is from. We're going through periods of the opioid crisis, for example, so you should be aware that it's something that we're dealing with. But the characters are so well written. Demon Copperhead is maybe a 600-page book, and when it ended, I was disappointed. I loved Demon Copperhead so much. I loved Damon as a character. His name is Damon, but everyone calls him Demon. And I enjoyed how specific his voice was. You would never say that a 50-year-old woman wrote this book. I don't know how old Barbara Kingsolver is, I'm guessing. But just to compare, so we're going through when Demon was a child and going up through his life, everything that he deals with, his perseverance in certain areas. Some things in this book are really difficult, obviously, but I think that if you have any curiosity about the book, you should read it, and you would be surprised how much you enjoyed it, or at least that's how I felt. And then we have Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. I was curious to read this because I'm trying to read books either set in different countries around the world or the authors from that country. Black Butterflies is set in Sarajevo in Bosnia, which is a place I've never read from before, or I don't know much about the country. I felt that this historical fiction helped me to learn about the siege that happened in Bosnia and the experience of some of the people there. Priscilla is specifically writing from the history of her own family, and the characters are based on some of her family members. The book is called Black Butterflies because it relates to sort of ash falling from the sky in a period of war. As a world, we're going through a very difficult time right now where we're seeing wars, active genocides happening in our faces in a very blatant way. And so reading about the siege in Bosnia can be very emotionally draining. But I would say that reading about histories from different countries, histories that are not as popularly known, is very important, and so take care when reading it, but I would highly recommend Black Butterflies. And then lastly, we have the first book in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, which is part of a series of trilogies by Robin Hobb. I committed a cardinal sin last year where I only read the books that included Fitz. So I didn't read the Ship of Magic trilogy, and then I didn't read the Dragon Wilds trilogy. And I know that Robin Hobb fans will probably come at me for doing so, but I loved Fitz so much that I didn't want to be outside of his first person narration. I think that I in fact loved the series so much that I will continue to read them in the correct way and include the other books that I missed going on in the next 5 years of my life, because all of the books are like 1,000 pages long. But the first book in the Fitz and the Fool trilogy is the last trilogy of this series of series. And I was so happy to start the end of this story, to see what's happening with Fitz in the later stage of his life, because we're starting in the Farseer trilogy with Fitz as a child, where he gets left at the door with his grandfather saying, I cannot feed this child anymore. His father is absent. His father knows that he exists. His father, who is a prince, needs to take care of him. So in the last series, when Fitz is about 60 years old, if I remember correctly, we're going through the last phase of his life. But something unexpected happens in the first book, and I loved it so much, and I was so surprised by it, and I want to spoil it so badly. Can I just say it? I don't think this channel is going to be a spoiler-free channel, because it really was so unexpected and game-changing that I hope that the rumors are true that Robin Hobb will be writing another series with this new character that gets introduced in the first book. But essentially, with this new character, this book was 5 stars for me. Every other book by Robin Hobb has been a solid 4 stars. This one ratcheted up to a 5. The second book in the series was a 3 because I felt that there wasn't enough urgency. I felt that Robin Hobb's writing is very slow, but going from the first into the second book, I really felt like, okay, we need to hurry up. Something bad is happening. We need to deal with this. And I felt the pacing in the second book. Maybe I was impatient, but I needed to get to the third book very desperately. But the first book in the series was definitely my favorite out of all, 20 books of this series. My honorable mention is Bunny by Mona Awad. The reason this is an honorable mention in my best books is that I don't know if I love or hate this book. It could go either way. I still don't know. It is the most memorable book that I read this year. And so I feel like it should be a 5 stars. But as you're reading this book, you're like, what? Huh? I don't understand. What is happening? Okay, no, but really, what is happening? And during the reading experience, I was so confused that I wasn't sure if I was enjoying it or not in different areas of the book. And now, months later, it is the one book that I still think about, I wonder about, I want to read more commentary about. I'm thinking of rereading because I think I hate it, but I think that I love it and it's a genius book. I don't know. But thank you so much for joining me for my best books of 2023. The next video you'll see is a ranking of all the 4-star books that I read last year. I generally give books 4 stars, and so I really wanted to separate and tier rank what is actually the best out of those books. I hope to see you there. I hope that you have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.